Welcome back to the Bentonville Beacon podcast, where we're sharing stories and advice from the entrepreneurs, business executives, and community leaders sparking the rise of the greater Bentonville area, representing one of the fastest growing economies and cities in the United States, nestled in the Ozark Mountains of Northwest Arkansas in the heartland of America. This is part 2 of a 2-part series about the Fuel Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning Accelerator. You'll hear from founders and entrepreneurs of the companies in the current cohort. So sit back and enjoy these conversations. And here comes the first one. Okay, I'd like to introduce you to Dexter Caffey, who is the founder and chief disruptor at Smart Eye Technology, who was based in Atlanta yesterday, but relocated to Bentonville today. Dexter, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, James.
Well, what should the Bentonville Beacon audience know about you?
Well, I think originally I'm from Ohio, and I moved to Atlanta like 20 plus years ago. Mm-hmm. And recently I did my 23andMe DNA test and found that I was actually descendant of Pharaoh Ramses III, so which was a shock to me and to my family as well.
That is such a cool story. I remember the first time you told me about it, and y'all look at his face now. After this episode's over, go ahead and Google Ramses III, and you're going to find out that you've already seen him right here today. It's kind of freaky. It's cool.
Very freaky. Yes.
I mean, what was that like when you first pulled up a picture? You've told me the story, but tell the audience.
That's a great question, James. What happened was I was laying in my bed on Christmas Day. I'll never forget. And I was going through my 23andMe DNA test, and I saw that I was connected to Pharaoh Ramses III. And I said, who in the heck is Pharaoh Ramses III? And then I looked him up online, and I saw his sculpture, and I screamed. And my wife said, Dexter, what's wrong? I said, this guy from 4,000 years ago, we look just alike. And she said, what are you talking about? There's a picture from 4,000 years. I said, no, his sculpture, we look just alike. So I showed it to my wife. She said, oh my goodness. And at that point, I told my wife, I don't need a breakfast with pancakes and eggs. Now they need a breakfast with a big spread now. She said, Dexter, there's a pot, there's a pansy, you know how to cook. So that was my short fame.
The Pharaoh had it better.
Absolutely.
Dexter, let's talk about your company. Let's talk about Smart Eye Technology. Who do you serve? What problem are you solving for them? And how do you do that?
That's a great question. So what the area that we focus on is really like the banking industry is one of the core areas that we focus on. And the reason why is because a lot of times in the banking industry, you have hackers constantly going after trying to get into accounts to wire money out or to transfer money or do ACH damage to accounts. So Smart Eye actually protects those accounts. But actually, when you put your username and password, Smart Eye actually uses biometric authentication, meaning your facial recognition by other biometrics such as fingerprint in order to authenticate you as a person, not a username, not a password, but actually you. And so we use what's called continuous facial recognition that continuously monitors your face every second that you're looking at that screen, whether it's your bank account or whether it's a medical record. So we're constantly scanning your face just to make sure it's you. And then if you turn your face away from the screen, that screen will go blank because we cannot authenticate your face anymore.
Man, that is beyond neat. I can think of a ton of applications for this, whether it's in healthcare, banking, aerospace, defense. You can really change some things. I think about the, folks who were affected by, we talked about this the other day, folks who were affected by things like the OPM, Office of Personnel Management for the U.S. government breach.
Absolutely.
Millions, tens of millions of people
Absolutely.
who are affected. Could you talk about how your technology could have stopped something like that from happening?
Very easily, James. That's a great question. What happens in most breaches, over 90%, passwords and usernames are actually the reason why breaches happen. Mm-hmm. So a hacker will send you an email saying, hey, James, this is Dexter. Click on my fun videos from my vacation. And you click on those videos. It wasn't from Dexter, it's from a hacker. So they get your credentials, whether it's your banking account credentials, your where if you buy things online credentials, they'll get those credentials, your username and password, and they go to those locations and they actually access your data. If you have a 2-factor on there, it may challenge them a little bit, but they'll still get past that as well. Wow. So Smart Eye actually steps in and says, wait a minute, after you put your username, password, and the 2-factor in, that's not good enough. That's 1990s technology. So what Smart Eye does, we actually authenticate your face, your fingerprint, your voice, again, your face continuously to really authenticate you as a person.
That's impressive. Well, let's go a step further. Say I want to hack into OPM's system. How can you stop that from happening to stop tens of millions of people from getting information
that's a database. So in the situation where all that data is actually located at, you could actually use what's called our SETI mode API, which is our core technology that uses continuous facial recognition. So if it's in that system, anybody who has access to that system, whether you use a username, password to get into it, your face has to be authenticated continuously at all times to have access to that data. If it's not your face continuously authenticated, the screen is blocked because that data can't be seen by anybody but just your face.
Oh, that is impressive, and that's game changing.
Totally.
Well, thank you for bringing it, and thank you for coming to Fuel to spend time here with it. So talk about your experiences in Fuel then. What did you expect out of the program, and what has happened as a result for you?
When I first came to Fuel back in August, actually I was invited the last part of July, and they said you have to be here August 15th. So I jumped up and told my wife I have to be in, Bentonville in 2 weeks. For 90 days. So it was a fast moving train, and I jumped on that train, and I didn't know what to expect originally. And so when I did come to Fuel, I would expect that maybe they teach you things like how to talk to corporations, which they did. But at the end of the day, it's about helping you understand what it's like to generate revenue from these enterprises and how to approach these enterprises, because they don't think like small businesses or everyday individuals. So you have to understand how to approach these enterprises. So I think that was one of the biggest things that I've learned, because I sold to enterprises in my other business that I was in, but it was a financial services business. Technology is different because there's things that you have to put in place that are not just a yes or no answer. There's procedures that have to be done. There's things that have to be checked. It's a different animal than what I did previously. So I actually learned all over again, especially with Fuel, to help me understand exactly some of the things that enterprises look for as you do approach them.
Yeah, I mean, even the concept, right, of selling technology is different. I've sold in other places hardware. I've sold consumables. I've sold services, and all of those are different. And so, when folks say, "Oh, I've sold to enterprises before," it's different, especially when you're selling technology, and you do, like you said, you need to learn the whole process over, and that's something that Fuel can bring for you. On top of it, they bring you mentors. They bring you in very close contact with potential customers, and
Absolutely.
It's game changing for companies.
And that's a big point that you mentioned about bringing these big enterprises to us. It's not like we're just sitting on our own trying to think of who we should talk to. We're actually introduced to these big enterprises because of this program. So again, and nothing is given to you. You have to go out there and work for it, even though things are presented to you. You have to work it just like anybody else has to work it. It's nothing that's going to be given to you.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk about Bentonville. You signed up for 90 days.
Yes, I did.
And added a plus to it later. So this is a loaded question then. How has Bentonville been for you? What has your experience here been?
My expectations of Bentonville when I first came, or I asked people who've been here like maybe 10 years ago, they said Dexter's very rural, not a lot to do. So all these things were in the back of my head. I thought I would see people in straw hats and, with maybe some type of straw in their mouth or something like that. I was dead wrong. So when I got here to Bentonville, I noticed how modern the city was. I noticed how clean the city was. And in fact, this one particular guy, my first day here, I was riding my bike through the park, and he saw a piece of paper on the ground. And I saw him bending down. I said, "What is this guy doing?" He picked up that piece of paper and threw it in a trash can. And I said, "What type of place is this where people bend down, pick up trash, and put it in a trash can?" In Atlanta, where I'm from, you don't see that.
It does change. I mean, culturally, that's where we're at. I mean, people care so much about this place, and they discover this amazing place, and they move to this amazing place, and then they just become part of that fabric, part of that DNA, where you're passing a piece of trash, you pick it up and throw it away because you want a beautiful, clean city. And it is a different mindset. I've lived in a lot of other places. I grew up in Central Arkansas. I went to New Orleans, Nashville, Chicago, Denver, Memphis before coming here, and we're done, never leaving. But man, being in some other places, you you just don't see that. You're exactly right.
Absolutely. And I had no intentions of moving here when I first came here. I just came here to go to the program, then go back to Atlanta. But when I noticed, James, that, when you're here in Bentonville, it's a relationship town. Mm-hmm. And it's about building relationships. So I recognize that throughout the program. And, I told my wife, hey, listen, we're going to be moving to Bentonville. So my wife knows she's married. She married a crazy person. So she knows that I'm capable of anything. And she just, pretty much said, it's just my wife and I and a dog. So mm-hmm. It's not a hard move for us.
That's great. Well, welcome home.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm going to ask you one more question, and you could have very well answered that a moment ago. That was a hashtag because Bentonville story, but I'm going to ask you another one. Tell me a story. This is a hashtag because Bentonville story, something that happened. Oh, I did ask you that, right?
No, actually.
No, okay. Yeah. I was like, did I ask you that? Or were you talking about your Bentonville experience?
Yes. But I've got another story.
Yeah, that would be great.
That just on Sunday, what happened to me, I was actually coming from church. I was actually on Sunday and after the game. And, we needed a lot of prayer after that game.
Yeah. Yeah. They'll be back someday.
And so what happened, I was sitting next to this lady in church, and her and her husband. I didn't know this lady from Adam. And so the church was over. So I'm getting ready to go. And she said, sir, can you tell me more about you and what are you doing here? Wow. And I said, I'm here in this Fuel program and this and that. And so she said, well, are you doing anything for lunch? And I said, no. I said, are you doing anything for lunch? She said, no. And then she said, let's go get something to eat with my husband and I. So I'm like, okay, this sounds kind of crazy, but I'm hungry. We're a startup. We're always looking for some help here and there. So I said, absolutely, I'll go get a meal. So we went to Table Mesa.
Nice.
And I sat next to the door. I said, I don't know whether to run out this door or to hug them when I leave. So I didn't know the people. We had a chance to sit down and talk. I learned more about them and some things that they were doing. And so they learned more about me. And it was really a great opportunity to meet people. And that can only happen here. That's never happened to me in any other place I've been to. And I've been to over 12 different countries last year, traveled around the world. And that experience has never happened to me on any level.
Wow. What a neat experience. Okay, that is hashtag because Bentonville.
Absolutely.
Very cool story. Thank you, Dexter. Thanks for coming on the show and for spending time with me and our audience.
Thank you, James. I appreciate it.
Hey, let me introduce you to Andrew Bart, who is the co-founder and CEO of AlgoFace, which is based in Carefree, Arizona. Andrew, welcome to the show.
James, it's a pleasure to meet you again.
Hey, tell me about yourself. What should the Bentonville Beacon audience know about you?
So I was actually privately adopted from Little Rock, Arkansas. Mm-hmm. It was arranged before I was born. I spent literally 3 days in the state before my family took me up to Baltimore, Maryland, where I was raised for the majority of my childhood. And so coming back to Arkansas as part of the Fuel Accelerator program was literally my first experience in Arkansas where I was, able to absorb it.
Wow. That's a cool introduction. Well, I only grew up in Little Rock, and then I moved away for a long time and moved back here to Northwest Arkansas 3 years ago and am never leaving. So I'm glad you're getting
understandable.
I'm glad you're getting to experience this and see, Arkansas in this way. It's amazing. Talk to me about AlgoFace. Who do you serve? What's the problem you're solving? And then how do you do it?
So AlgoFace, we make it easier for enterprise level companies to build and deploy face AI or analysis solutions. Things like virtual try-on for anything from here to here, from your neck basically to the top of your head. That is our area of expertise. So things like virtual try-on for cosmetics, hair extensions, lashes, jewelry, eyewear, things like that. We also enable hyper-realistic digital avatars and digital humans, and also things like vital sign detection, blood pressure, heart rate, oxygen level, temperature detection, and for telepsychiatry, emotion detection. So we have an infrastructure that supports building and deploying those types of solutions and many others.
Oh man, that's so cool. love the angle on the healthcare angle. Of course, that being my background, but had not thought about the emotions detection part of it. At one time, I worked with a group of guys where we almost launched a company that worked with elderly folks because they suffer from, the older they get, the more their friends pass away, and the more they get many times where they are confined to sort of where they live, they become lonelier and lonelier, and it leads to a cascade of problems. So that's a space that your technology could be used in, and
silver
really
tech for lives. Sure. Yeah, I mean, we've talked to a number of parties in this that operate in the silver tech arena for things like remote patient monitoring and being able to bring, look, if you you have blood pressure issues and you have a cuff in your house, first of all, you don't want to touch that cuff. Every time you look at it, you get nervous. But with our technologies, you can look at your cell phone, or you can look at your, your tablet, and take it quickly and seamlessly. And it doesn't have that same feeling of pressure as looking at a blood pressure cuff sitting in front of you. Yeah, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, you've got to go get the cuff. You've got to put it on. That's a pain in the tail. You're probably not going to get to it that often. In reality, if you have blood pressure issues, and if they're fluctuating, you need to know more often. And so the ease of doing that is really great. I like it. Talk about your experiences with Fuel. What did you expect coming into the program, and what did you find?
Well, first of all, I just want to give a shout out to the Walton Family Foundation for making this happen, along with Startup Junkie and Tom Douglas and Darian Harris and Grace. She's, they have all been absolutely phenomenal. And really changed all of our cohort team members, all of our lives, impacted them in ways that, I just know we're going to be friends forever. And we're going to have these relationships that are being built through the program forever. They are organically developed, which speaks to the heart of Bentonville. There's nothing false here. There's an authenticity to the relationships that are created. So much of what I had thought coming into this program I knew coming in, and what was really attractive about this specific accelerator versus any other that I've been exposed to, is the fact that this accelerator is focused on helping to acquire and be better about optimizing the process of acquiring enterprise level customers. All other accelerators, or most other accelerators, I should say, are focused on teaching you how to raise money. Yep. And I don't know about you, but I would like a customer any day of the week over the worst deal you ever do, which is selling, equity in your company. So what the program has brought to me, I can speak for my cohort in terms of relationship building, that I can guarantee it that the impacts of this program will be felt 6 to 12 months from the time that the program ends, which is the enterprise sales cycle. I can pretty much guarantee that all of us are going to feel that impact.
Relationships for life. Revenue in the next 6 to 12 months sounds pretty exciting. And I love hearing you talk about revenue in that way, and Fuel's differentiator in that way. Look, I've run accelerators. I've also consulted with, in about a decade, I consulted with or advised or mentored more than 1,000 entrepreneurs. And this is a conversation we came back to time and time again. If I never saw anybody celebrate raising money again, I will be I'll be tickled to death. What I want to see is that they've raised revenue. There's several kinds of money. I'll start with, most of them start with S, right? Friends, families, financiers, fools. the most important form of cash your company can get, let me repeat this, the most important form of cash your company can get does not begin with an F. It begins with an R. It's revenue. And it is the only thing in my mind that validates your company.
Amen.
All the money you raise in the world, celebrate it for about 2 seconds, because it's about how much validation you got. That just means somebody somewhere thinks you might have a chance of being one of that small percentage of folks who can be successful. So I love that you brought this topic up.
I am a revenue guy. As much as I've been an entrepreneur for 24 years in tech, and as much as the fun of chasing the top line is in our industry, I cannot help and have never been, I was raised to be, I can't help but pay attention to the bottom line growth of the business. And, we've built our company really responsibly. We have 23 people as a seed round company.
Nice.
We're approaching cash flow neutrality, not even having completed our full seed round raise yet. So, revenue is important to us. Managing to a bottom line has been important to us, and building the business the right way. That's the only way I know how to do it.
Well, when you get ready to raise, and maybe you've met some of the folks already, there are folks around here who will like hearing those kinds of results, that are drawn to those kinds of results when they invest. So, talk about Bentonville more. You mentioned a little bit. How's this experience been here? And I'd love to know, since this was your first time coming to Bentonville, is that right?
That is correct.
Okay, then I'm going to ask the question.
And oh my goodness, it will not be the last by any stretch. I'm looking to open an office here. I'd like to have a presence here. That is very much on my immediate radar, both from a talent acquisition perspective as well as the exposure to this. Everybody talks about Walmart, and I appreciate the epicenter of Walmart and just how unique it is to have that kind of sponsorship to the community. But the whole, I don't know the full backstory of what Mr. Walton said that caused 1,600 plus vendors to have, decision makers on the ground here. But oh my God, what brilliance did that bring? Because you have a community here unlike anything I've ever seen anywhere. Where there are true decision makers on the ground, and for the Fuel program to be able to tap into that and pull that realistically in a small town and take 8 to 10 cohort members and put us in front of them with meetings, and these are direct relationships of Tom and Darian and Grace. It's absolutely unlike anything I have ever seen before.
Yeah, it would be very difficult to replicate, if not impossible, right? And that's the thing about ecosystems is, people talk about recreating this place and that place. I never want to do that. I want us to be the best, next best version of ourselves today and tomorrow and the next day. And this is one of those things where if anybody ever wants to replicate Bentonville, good luck. You're going to be second. You can never be better than first. You will be second. And I encourage you to go be the next best version of yourself in building your town, your place, your city and region.
Well, and it's homegrown too.
Yeah.
So, I know in different markets that I've lived in and participated in, you have companies that build up, and then the founders will, retire and sort of evaporate into the community. They may, donate to the whatever the Business Journal top 50, philanthropic organizations are, but the theme of giving back and really, almost, putting it into the training package of training your employees to be a part of the community and give back to that next generation of up and coming entrepreneurs. I mean, Walmart isn't, and the Walmart Family Foundation, from what I can tell as an outsider, it's not just having a name on the side of the building or having a name, or a check cut. There is a culture that I see and experience here of, VPs, EVPs, and below that are contributing into these programs. And, mentoring into them and opening up their networks, which is phenomenal. I mean, that is extremely rare to find. You're very lucky in Bentonville. Very, very lucky.
Yeah, I feel like it. I've lived around a lot of places, I mean, all over the country and some places around the world where it doesn't feel that same way.
Mm-hmm.
There's always seems to be a gatekeeper, and I'm not saying there's never any gatekeepers here, but there sure are very few, and people just want to help, and that's what I love about this place.
100%. I have felt that personally.
Excellent. Well, talk about. Well, let's do this. Let's go to the final questions. Let's go to a hashtag because Bentonville story. What's something that happened? You already have it on your mind, so I'll let you answer.
I'm gonna tell you two things, because I would be remiss if I did not mention the two epicenters of my life here. Okay, so Ramo Wine Bar has become. I'm a wine guy. And back home in Arizona, I have Bricks Wines, and that is the epicenter of my universe there. Every Wednesday night, I bring 10, 15 people together and no agenda and share, introduce them to each other. And, good things happen when you connect good people to one another.
Mm-hmm.
I have done my best to recreate that here at Ramo. Here it has been every Thursday night. Of course, it's sort of bled into Tuesdays and Wednesdays too, because I just love the people there, and it's been a great meeting spot. The other place I want to mention is Blake Street. I'm there every morning at 6 a.m. I am there many, many lunches. I can't tell you the number of absolute legitimate friendships that I have made there that will, I mean, I already have plans with people coming to visit me in Arizona, and me coming back, not even to do business, but just because of the friendships that I've developed. And I brought my wife to Blake Street, and we made very good friends that, again, family will drag me back here too. So the second thing that I want to mention about Bentonville is, and I think this is the total encompassing experience. To walk through the Bentonville Square, I cannot begin to tell you how many times, and I've been here since August, the number of times that I walk through Bentonville Square and somebody screams out of a car window, Andrew, and they wave to me, and I'm trying to turn around, and usually I'm just walking. I walk everywhere here. I love that part of it, but my goodness, to have a community that just warms up like that and embraces you it's magical. It's charming. It's like the Truman Show.
We've heard that before. Hey, to give folks context, you said since August, it is October, but it is so darn easy to build relationships here, and I absolutely love it.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Andrew, thank you for spending time with me and the Bentonville Beacon audience.
I appreciate you having me. A pleasure.
Anytime. Let me introduce you to Mike Romeri, who is the founder and CEO of Analytics2Go, which is based in Saratoga, Florida. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks, James. Pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you. Will you share with the audience about yourself? What should the Bentonville Beacon audience know about you?
So I was a management consultant, a partner in a consulting firm for about 20 years. And the last role that I had, I was asked to take over our technology department, which started with me.
Nice.
And so we really were slow to focus on technology. So I haven't always been focused on AI at all. And in the course of doing that, I learned a lot, and I met a professor from MIT. Then he and I started a company called Ops Rules, which was an analytics company. And we sold that to Accenture in 2016. And while I was at Accenture, I learned a lot. And two things that I took away were that one, that the world makes it really hard for supply chain practitioners to use AI.
Yes.
For two reasons. One is that they require the practitioners to re-engineer their processes. And the second is that there's a lot of complexity with respect to data. And so when we started our current company, we really had our goal to minimize the complexity of using AI for knowledge workers who, focus on supply chain management or pricing.
Yeah, I always tell folks that if you want to build a product and have great uptake and make life a whole lot easier on yourself, you have to build something that fits into their workflow, right? Yep. You can't build something over here that makes it better. It could be 1,000 times better, but if it doesn't fit into the workflow, it's going to be very difficult.
So really interesting you bring that up. So the CEO of Microsoft has a vision that Microsoft should provide a co-pilot for individuals in every profession. And they have one working example, which is for software programmers, where you can ask the co-pilot, used to be called GitHub, to provide known good code for you to use, or it can review the code that you submit and give you suggestions on improvements.
Nice.
And how far is that away from what we do in supply chain right now, where we spend years, literally years, designing a solution that takes years to deploy. So our goal is really to bring the co-pilot concept to supply chain management AI. That's where we hope to go.
Very nice. Very nice. So we'll talk about your experiences then with Fuel. What did you expect to get out of the program, and then what has happened for you?
I think we've always, as a firm, been open to outside thinking. And you just have to, because things move quickly, and you never have enough expertise to cover all of the challenges that you have to face. And I think, in a program like this, there are lots of different topics that are covered, and some are topics that you're strong in. A lot are topics that you don't know anything about. And so pricing has been a big challenge for us, for example, and we got some really good advice on how to price products. And then I think also we've been able to update and continuously improve. We probably have a ways to go, but we're really trying to improve the way we present ourselves to enterprise customers so that they're interested and that they want to learn more. So we do a very good job helping customers and helping them be successful. We do a very poor job explaining what we do and how we do it. And so it's been very helpful in that arena for us.
Yeah, I understand that totally. It's a funny thing on pricing. I always say it's pure magic. But I know that there's an art to it. Right. I realized a moment ago, I think I asked you about you, and you talked some about the company, but I didn't specifically ask you the question about the company, did I? So I'd love to dial it back a moment and ask you more about that, about specifically who you serve. I think you talked a little bit to it and the problem you're solving. You talked a little bit about that,
right?
And how you solve the problem. I'd love it if you could expand on those.
So we have a very specific focus on pricing and supply chain management AI for distributors and retail suppliers. And they have a unique requirement because they're all supporting, in the end, consumer markets that are pretty fickle. And fickle markets make it hard to predict demand. Demand is the number one driver. Demand variability is the number one driver of supply chain costs and complexity. And what companies often fail to do is recognize when a change in demand is occurring, and they wait too late to address it, and then they overcorrect. And I learned a new term since I've been here, which is called ditch to ditch.
Sure.
And so they go from being in shortage to being in excess. And I completely understand how that happens because it's very confusing. And once the pressure is on, you have to fix things quickly. You don't have time to really say, well, what's really optimal here, and take a careful step for resolving the problem you have without creating another one you're going to have to work on in the future.
Oh, wow. I feel like we saw, as consumers, we saw that magnified in
absolutely
very real time during COVID.
Right. So what we focus on is we augment ERP. So there are very good business process management solutions that exist within ERP for forecasting, for example, or material requirements planning, or vendor management. Sure. Where ERP fails is when the plan's not correct. That either the demand wasn't accurate or the suppliers didn't perform the way they were expected to. So then there's a need to optimize or re-optimize what happens. AI is very good at addressing that kind of problem, and much better than human intelligence can, because it's just very complex, because there are literally an infinite number of scenarios. And how do you search to find one of the better, not even the best, but one of the better scenarios?
Wow.
And that's what we do.
That's awesome. Well, glad to hear it. So we talked about Fuel. What about Bentonville? How has your experience here in Bentonville been? And I have to ask, I don't know if we've talked about this. Was this your first time to Bentonville?
Yes.
Or had you been before? Okay,
Nope.
great.
Not the first time to Arkansas, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, great.
So I visited Hot Springs many years ago and
Yeah.
went to the Derby down there a couple of years in a row.
Oh, that's a lot of fun.
It was.
Everybody should have an opportunity to go to the Arkansas Derby once or 10 times. And frankly, if you go to the Arkansas Derby and you see a horse that wins it, you've also likely seen a horse that's going to be in the Kentucky Derby.
Absolutely.
And oftentimes is one of the favorites.
Yep.
So yeah, check it out. It's a lot of fun. One more, I'll give you one more tidbit about Hot Springs, is the only city in the U.S. that's actually inside a national park.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can cross the street from one side of the main drag in Hot Springs and be in a national park on the other side of the street, and you're still in the city. It's kind of cool. Okay, then let's talk about Bentonville. What's your experience in Bentonville, Ben? What did you expect, and what have you gotten?
Well, I'm sure I'm not the first one to say that, the environment here is a lot more professional, more experience, more innovative. It's just sort of a series of superlatives where you don't expect someplace in Northwest Arkansas to bring together a group of, innovative people from all over the world that get things done. And so it's really a pleasure to work with people. Everybody's a quick study. Doesn't take long to explain what you do, and they give you good advice. And it's only your fault if you don't take it.
We're kind of like SEC sports. It just means more. or maybe we should say you just get more.
That's right.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Let's close this out with a hashtag because Bentonville question. And that's a story. And that's a story or something that happened where you look back at it and you go, I think that could only happen in Bentonville.
So I don't know if this is what you're looking for, but
Sure.
So our technology team is down in Brazil.
Okay.
So I brought 2 of our executives up for the last 10 days because we're very serious about opening an office here.
Oh, yeah.
And I want them to understand, what Bentonville is like, what the people are like, and how to work here effectively. So I've taken them to all of the restaurants that, people would consider to be the best restaurants.
Oh, yes.
But the one that's been most memorable for them has been the flying fish. Right.
I love it.
Because they haven't, of course, the menu there is very unique for a foreign person. And, the decor is really authentic. And, fishing is not such a big pastime in Brazil as it is in the United States. So that's their favorite, believe it or not.
No, man, I love flying fish. I just went there the other day with my wife and had, I think my meal was, I had gumbo.
Right. I'm more of a crawfish chowder man myself.
Oh, there you go. Well, yeah. Yeah, so exactly. I had gumbo. I forget what else I had. And I had, gumbo, frog legs, and gator.
Right.
That's what I had.
Okay.
Yeah, it was fabulous.
Yeah, one of the Brazilians had the best dish for us was the fresh trout.
Oh, my wife has that all the time. They
Right.
bring the whole darn thing out.
Yeah, they loved it.
Yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. In fact, that's what she had. So I knew I was going to have even more to eat after that. And at flying fish, I don't mind at all.
Very
Mike,
cool.
thank you so much for
pleasure.
coming
Thank you
on
for
the
having
show.
me.
Enjoyed speaking with you. Okay, let me introduce you to Kevin Butler with Edify, where he's responsible for strategy and business development. Edify is based in Salt Lake City. Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm a bit of a podcast junkie and have been a regular listener to the show, so it's exciting to be on it this time.
Oh man, thanks. I'll put your check in the mail. Well, you're local, so you're kind of the odd man out here in the Fuel Accelerator in that way, and so you'll have your own unique experiences too. And I can't wait to hear about them. What should the Bentonville Beacon audience know about you?
Sure. I think there's a couple things. One is I live here in Bentonville. Been here in the area for 10 years, but the last 4 years have been on Bentonville Utility Board, which I think probably most people don't know about. And I think it's maybe speaks to some of the stuff we'll share about later, but Bentonville has its own electric department, for instance, and that's something I really take a lot of joy in giving back and working on. But overall, I am kind of maybe a Swiss Army knife of a person in that I have had experiences in a lot of different areas. I started on Wall Street as an investment banker, then an investor, and then did a PhD. So a little bit of time in academia, and have been working for the last several years in kind of tech and product development. So, I covered a lot of different areas, and kind of in some ways makes it harder to find me, but also makes me valuable in certain situations. So I like dabbling in a lot of different things.
That's cool. I mean, you just represent one of the many cool kids in this city who has such interesting background. I think I'd like to do a podcast someday where I'm just talking with people, talking about their backgrounds. And I guess I could really talk to everybody. So regardless of what their job is, and we'll just call it Average Joe, and
I like that.
Hear all these really cool stories. I have to ask, how did you end up on the Bentonville Utility Board? How does that happen?
Well, it was, I always wanted to get involved somehow in local government just to kind of give back. And my wife and I just moved from Fayetteville to Bentonville, bought a house up here. And so I was looking around like, is there anything out there? And I stumbled upon an article that was saying the city was about to start a utility board. So we didn't have one before then. And I said, okay, let me dig into this. And I previously had worked as an institutional investor at a hedge fund and had a lot of investments that were kind of utility-like in nature. And so it was something where I felt like I could take my professional life and directly apply it and giving back to the city and helping out there. So that was it was a really just timing thing, but it's been a lot of fun and interesting to learn and serve there.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing your experiences and expertise to bear to help this great city.
Absolutely.
I guess I'll talk to the audience for a moment about that. You have some great opportunities if you're here in Bentonville, really to give back to the city and join boards like this. Another recent one is the Attainable Housing Work Group. There's all the time, there's work groups and different boards that you can join. And so just reach out to the city of Bentonville and ask them what's available. Go to their website. You can see what's available. If you don't know, exactly what you can do, just start talking with people at the city. If you have ideas for this city or things you'd like to see implemented here, again, talk to the city, reach out to Mayor Orman. I know she's very accessible. We had her on this show a few weeks ago, and I think she might have even given out her email address, but she at least shared in some way how to reach her and that she's very accessible. But this is a place where you can really give back and be part of the community. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Talk about Edify. What is it that Edify does, or who do they serve? What does the company do to solve, or what? Let me try to ask this question again. Who does Edify serve? What problems are they solving, and how do they do that?
Yeah. So, our name's Edify. Our website's Edify.ai. If people want to find out more, but we make workplace safety software. So, think of high-risk industries like construction, warehouses, manufacturing. We make software for those industries where our goal is that every employee comes home safe every night. And so what we do is through our data and analytics platform, we're able to help companies identify and understand the risks they face when it comes to workplace injuries, and then provide them with actionable insights to help drive changes in behavior and ultimately reduce accidents, which on its own is a wonderful thing. We're really passionate about that and believe in that. But it turns out that being more safe actually has a huge economic benefit to companies as well. And you reduce claims, and you see drastic decreases in insurance premiums, or if you self-insure, there's huge amounts of money to save there. And then there's all sorts of indirect benefits as well. So it's I think we all love it because it's whatever way you look at it, it's a good thing that we're doing, and so that's something we love.
Yeah, that's great, man. Anytime you can make employees safe, and you're just making the world a better place, right? I made myself a note that I can't tell what it says. I wrote down, every employee comes home safe every night. And that, I don't know if that's like in the mission statement of the company, but that would be an awesome mission statement.
Yeah, it is our company vision. So
perfect.
Yeah.
Excellent. Talk about your experiences with Fuel. What's that been like?
Yeah, mine is obviously different from the other folks that you're talking to because I live here and I got thrown into it in the middle of it. So
nice.
Corey, our CEO, has been here for a lot of it as well. And, I got hired by him partway through it and have I think been a part of it more than expected because we're about to close this week our new round of funding. So Corey's been tied up in Salt Lake City with that. But my experience, first of all, just from the beginning, everybody's been extremely welcoming, and it was a little odd at first coming into a group that had been together for a couple of weeks and already made friends, but couldn't have been more welcoming. And I think all of us will say this, that one of the big benefits of it is it's another opportunity to create some friendships and associations that I think we're all going to have for the rest of our lives and be able to rely on. And we're all doing different things, but related things in some way. And, having that network, no matter if some of them are here or across the world or the country, is just something that I think is invaluable. The other thing I'd add is the mentorship network that you gain here. And I think you can get that regardless in Bentonville. That I think is the sort of place where if you put yourself out there and ask for some help, people are more than willing to do so. But it's obviously part of the mission of this. And it's been extremely helpful for our company and, just being able to get introduced to people. People just said, hey, let me just text you this person's contact and just tell them that, so-and-so said to talk to him. And that happens, I feel like, every day right now. And it's really opening up doors, helping us understand our markets better, or even lead to business, sales. So
yeah, it does happen every day. It happened right here in this studio about 40 minutes ago, where somebody said, I know exactly how to reach that person. Here's a phone number. And they made a text introduction a few minutes ago before we hopped on. So you're absolutely right. I love that you talked about the mentorship piece. You're right. In this town, you can find mentors everywhere and people willingly help. But the opportunity to get mentorship through Fuel means that those relationships or pairing of the mentors, that's a curated thing.
Right.
And so it in and of itself is an accelerant and is a huge benefit of this program. So Bentonville, you've been here the last few years. You first came to Northwest Arkansas, to Fayetteville from Silicon Valley, and then moved to Bentonville a few years ago. And you've been in the region 10 years. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
You must have seen some pretty amazing growth in those 10 years. Can you talk about what this place was like when you got here and then how it has evolved and how that has affected you personally?
Yeah. Well, I got to say my biggest regret is that I did not buy more property 10 years ago because, but it's remarkable how things have changed and continue to as well. I think when I had just moved here, it was in 2013. I think the square in Bentonville was first going through its revitalization and I've always kind of known it as a square, but you see it continue to get just more popular and busier and just kind of the heart of the city. And the amount of development that has been going on, some of it is, I think what shocked me was I moved here from San Francisco. I grew up in Silicon Valley, but I lived in the actual city of San Francisco, and there's not a spare lot in that city.
Right.
And to come here and this is still the case in some areas, there'll be pasture land that's just open, in the middle of the city, and to see stuff like that. And then, a year later, it suddenly might be, a huge complex or something else developed there. And that's the speed at which that's happening. And the way those things are changing is incredible. But to part of your question, what brought me out here is that I did a PhD and decided to come out here to do it at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville. So that's originally what drew me out here. And, we stuck around. It was kind of initially, by accident. My wife was working at Walmart and had a really great job there, got a promotion, and we decided, hey, let's stick it out for a couple more years. And, now we own a home, and I'm not sure that there's any plans to go anywhere else at this time. So
that's called that. I've heard that story a number of times where somebody came out because one partner was associated in some way with Walmart or that ecosystem, and it didn't take them very long to realize this was home.
Yeah,
and they weren't leaving. So that's a cool story. I love that you said the square is the heart of the city. That revitalization of the square, people talked about quality of life and revitalizing squares and downtowns and so on for, I guess, seemingly decades, even before I was in economic development.
Right.
I'd hear chatter about those sort of things, and people would revitalize, especially in big city parts of downtowns, and say they revitalized their downtown. But then you have places like Bentonville, and you have cities of similar size all across the country that talked about it, but didn't do anything. And then Bentonville and Fayetteville and now Rogers and Springdale. But these cities were doing it. They were doing it in a time when everybody else was talking about it. And then it started causing this revitalization of the whole city, and then this growth, and then people wanted to come here, and they discovered what a cool place it was and found all the opportunities, both personally and professionally. And then the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
And the growth that was already happening was like they dumped fuel on the fire. There we got to finally say, use a fuel pun, dump fuel on the fire. And the way this place has continued to grow, I feel like we're still in the bottom of the J curve. In fact, the numbers demonstrate that we're still in the bottom of the J curve. It's getting steeper.
Right.
And it's pretty exciting to be here and be a small part of it. Last question I have for you, Kevin. I'd love to hear a hashtag because Bentonville story. That's something that happened where you look at it and you go, you know what? I think that could only happen in Bentonville, or it describes the essence of this place.
Yeah. I think that probably the one that happened most recently was actually, last Saturday. Dexter and I were coming to meet up with you to go to the game. And I happen to live on a street it's a dead end, but it's right off of J Street. And so anytime there's any sort of race, whether it be a walk or anything, it gets closed. And I can't tell you how many times, sometimes it's annoying if you're trying to get somewhere, but I think it's one of those kind of charms of Bentonville is that there's so many times that street has been closed off because of a bike race. And we sat there for a couple minutes. We were fine. We weren't in a rush, but the number of bikes that rode by for this race was just, you kept thinking that this is the end of it. Right. And then another pack would come, and it's something that I think that you get used to living here. It's just part of it. But especially having Dexter in the car with me to see it was fun to see it kind of through his eyes. But that to me is, one of the things we talk about bikes here all the time, but it really is a big thing.
It really is. So I think that was Big Sugar.
Right.
And then Outer Bike was over the weekend as well. And then during the week and the weekend before, you had the Shift Conference and you had Little Sugar
the week. Yeah.
And we're in this period that, like, from about September to the start of November, every weekend, it's like these bike races and conferences and summits and events are just all piled on top of each other. And it's really a cool time to be here. And it's also the time when you start having the weather change.
I was going to say, it's probably no coincidence that they picked this time of the year.
Exactly. It's a beautiful time of year, right? I mean, that's one thing I love about this place is we do have these 4 moderate seasons, although occasionally some of them are severe for a few weeks or feel that way. But we know we're always going to come back to these 4 moderate seasons. And if you're in the cycling community, I mean, we like to say you can ride 12 months out of the year. It's probably 50 weeks out of the year that you can ride, and you get some these occasions in December when the temperature sometimes is 70 or 75, but just out of the blue, and it gives you this reprieve from the start of winter, and you can go ride. It's amazing. So, well, that's cool. Thank you for sharing that story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kevin, thanks for coming on the Bentonville Beacon.
Thank you for having me.
Hope you enjoyed this episode and the one before it about this current fuel cohort in the same way that I did. It's just fascinating hearing everybody's stories and their companies and their experiences that they've had here in Bentonville, and in particular with the Fuel Accelerator. As we wrap these two episodes up, I want to introduce you to Grace Gill, who is the operational manager for Fuel. And by the way, you can check out in the last time that we did these episodes about Fuel, you can check out an episode where I talk with Grace a little bit more and get a little bit more information about her. But today, Grace, I would like to ask you, I've got 3 questions for you. And the first one's about you. What is the most random thing that our audience should know about you?
Well, a lot of the audience may know this now. I've been talking, and more people know this about me now, but I am a competitive powerlifter. So I'm actually getting ready to jump on a plane tomorrow morning to go compete in the American Pro, the Super Bowl of powerlifting. So I'm really looking forward to competing at a really high level. And so looking forward to doing that. And that is kind of my big hobby, my big fun fact. So that's me.
Okay, so by the time this episode airs, we're going to hear about your latest world records and maybe bring home a championship. You are going to bring home a championship ring.
If they actually did rings, hopefully, yes.
Okay. What do you get? Oh, you get a belt.
Better than that, just a big, heavy medal.
Of course, you have to carry it around. That makes sense. Just out of curiosity, where is the American Pro being held?
It's in Manassas, Virginia, so nice. Outside of DC.
Yeah, very cool. Okay, let's talk about Fuel. As Fuel has evolved, what has been changing about the different Fuel cohorts?
Yeah, we've been running the AI ML cohort out of Fuel for the past 4 years now. But something that we really focus on is making our cohorts non-competitive. And so out of that, we're starting to see a lot of collaboration between the companies in the cohorts. Obviously, you've heard from the cohorts, they talk about how close they get and how the camaraderie within cohorts is really strong. But even across cohorts, we're seeing a lot of business development and new opportunities coming out of each of these companies working together, establishing roots in Northwest Arkansas. And like I said, just building a sense of camaraderie with each other.
That's very cool. Yes, we did hear a lot of that from these teams about the camaraderie. I love that you're having this cross cohort collaboration. Now you've built a real ecosystem and a family of companies that get to work and build together. So
yeah, cool. Absolutely. Even just last month, we had 2 of the previous companies who just announced a big collaboration come back to Northwest Arkansas to celebrate that, to promote that. So we were really excited to support them in that.
Very cool. Tell our audience which 2 companies those were.
Risk Karma and Queris.
Absolutely. Okay. Last question I have for you is, so somebody wants to apply, or they're listening to these 2 episodes and thinking, I've got to get in Fuel. Can I even apply? And what is the application process, and how do you select these companies?
Absolutely. We select our cohorts based on 4 main pillars. We look for team. We want to see a really strong team. We look for fit in the area. We want to know that you're getting some good traction. And then, of course, the last one is product. We want to know that your technology is good. And so based on those 4 criteria, we go through applications, we go through an interview process to make sure that we're bringing in the best companies into the new cohort. And then if you're interested in applying, our applications for the AI ML cohort open November 2nd. And that application will be open through the end of the year, and for the health tech program starting in April, and then for the AI ML cohort in 2024, the applications for that will open around June.
Okay, Fuel for Your Health's April?
Yes.
And then AI ML is June?
Yes.
Excellent. Well, that's perfect. Thank you so much for sharing just a little bit with us today, Grace.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Hey, thanks to our Bentonville Beacon audience. Without you, this show could not be successful. Appreciate you checking out these two episodes with the Fuel cohort. Please feel free to share these with your friends and colleagues around the world. Tell everybody about Fuel so that we can have more amazing companies come here to experience Fuel and Bentonville, this place where you get more of what you want, less of what you don't. Check out all of our episodes at bentonvillebeacon.com or on your favorite podcast player, where, of course, you'll hit that subscribe button. Thanks. We'll see you next time.